Hello, and welcome to Crystal Clear Podcast. I'm Crystal Bell, your host today, and I have an amazing guest with me that I'm super excited to host. She is Dr. Stephanie MacKay. She's an integrative practitioner of Eastern and functional medicine. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. We've met on our journey and we've become great friends, which I feel like is just something that happens in my life.
Yes.
My reason for seeing you was initially I had some stuff going on with my thyroid. I couldn't really figure it out. Because I felt like I needed a voice in my navigating my health and my journey. And I felt like I wasn't really being heard in a lot of the areas that I was looking at before. And I know that that's fairly common. And I know you work with a lot of fertility and hormone therapies and things like that. But how did this all get started for you? How did your journey with, health and wellness, and what was your kind of aha moment? I know what mine was as a child. It was kind of, coaching myself out of lifestyles that I was surrounded by with health and fitness and whatnot, and later into mental health. But so how did you get started on your journey? I'm always curious. I love to know everyone's story.
Oh, good. So it started when I was a teenager as well. And I would go to the gynecologist and I would see a man, and my periods I would bleed for 12 to 14 days every month. And I thought that was normal, and I thought that I thought it was abnormal, but I thought it was broken, so I didn't want to tell anybody. And then I told him, and he said, "Oh, it's a hormone issue." And I'm like, "Oh, thank goodness." And he just threw me a pack of pills, and he's like, "Try those." And so I took the birth control pills, and I would gain 10 pounds in a month. And during your hormonal time of your life, I was already hormonal, and then you add more hormones, and I was a crazy person. So I took them for several months, gaining the weight, not being happy, and just, not being a teenager. And so I decided, next time I'd go, I said, "I don't like these." So he's like, "Oh, try these." And so for a year and a half, we were trying these, try these, try these. And I would lose weight, gain weight, lose weight, gain weight. My emotions were on a roller coaster. And I said, it's not even worth it. This is crazy to me. It's not fixing my problem. I mean, sometimes my period would be shorter. Sometimes it would be the same. So I said, I'm done. I can't do this. And my mom is a nurse. So she's like, "Oh, you have to." And I go, "But I don't." And so that was the first time I used my voice. And I said, "I'm not doing this," even though I was told I was supposed to do this. And so I just had weird periods. They weren't painful or anything for years. And then I really loved nutrition. So I love how when you eat food, it changes into different components into your body and you utilize things. And I'm kind of a nerd, and I just love how all of those things happen, the processes. So I went to school for nutrition, and then I didn't want to work in a hospital because I wanted to work with people that wanted to change. So I met this person who was telling me about acupuncture school, and I was like, I've never even heard of it. But he was talking to me. I met his wife, and it was just so fascinating. So I went to school, and one of my teachers was a gynecologist. She was an MD in China, and she prescribed me these herbs, and they were horrendous. It would almost throw up every time because they were so gross. But it literally changed my period to the most beautiful thing. It was fresh red blood, perfect cycle, and I had never had any issues. I didn't have any mood swings, or if anything, I was more balanced.
Right.
And so I was like, how can that, I was, I'm like, oh, acupuncture, maybe it'll help with back pain. That's what I honestly thought when I started school. So I was so mesmerized by how it could change your cycle that I had been battling for years. So I really gravitated towards working with her and just learning more of what she had to offer. And I really think that's how I was able to get pregnant so easily when I did conceive. And so my goal is to help women to have their voice, to be able to say, I don't want to do that because it's not fixing anything. It would never fix my problem. It was just covering up issues.
It's medicating it and creating more issues on top of that.
100%.
And I think that, that's where I can relate 100%. Like, I had these antibodies on my thyroid and they're like, oh, well, you should take this medication. I'm like, what? There's nothing wrong with my thyroid. There's antibodies, which I, with my background, I'm not a doctor by any means, but I know that means there's something else going on in my system and I'm not getting answers for that. So, I'm going to like prestigious hospitals and doctors here. And why is this my only option? So I feel your pain on that. And that's, and as a side note, I love that you started your conversation with your period because let's just like faux pas that. It's really not some crazy secretive thing.
It's a gift. And I feel like women, they're like, do you have a tampon? And they like hide everything. And I'm like, you need a tampon over there? Here, catch. Because I feel like you have to embrace it and be happy.
It's a part of being a woman. Like if we're going to celebrate being a woman in all of its forms, it's a huge part of it.
100%.
And I think because as society and in history and, this hysterical women that we are, right? They've really kind of put there's a whole stigma around it. Oh, it's just PMS or anytime anyone's having a mood or and it's something that's generational trauma. That's carried on to our daughters and, oh, am I, and like my daughter says, Mom, why would they make us wear khaki pants in middle school? Why do we have to wear khaki pants? Because we start our period and we bleed all over the place.
Yes.
And it's like, but people don't want to talk about that. But it's a hard truth for young girls. So it's like, I don't know, why are they making you wear these pants, and it can be humiliating, but she's like, but Mom, I don't care. I'm like, but that's what I love about you, Tatum. Like, you don't care. Yeah. Because it's just part of life. It's part of, I feel like that has something to do with my parenting. But it's just, you have to own it. You have to own your body. You have to own everything that happens to it and be in charge of it. And I think if we really want to be empowering to our children, to other women, to, society in general, it's just to normalize all of these conversations.
And I feel like women, like when they come in, they don't know anything about their periods. No. And so I would love to go into schools and educate women on what your period should look like. Because some girls, like I remember in middle school, there was a girl that would be out 1 to 2 days every single month. And I was like, you must have like the lowest pain tolerance in the world. Because I never had cramps a day in my life.
Yeah, me either.
And then I after talking to these women, it's real and it's horrific. And my heart goes out to them. And it even goes out to them more because they don't get help. They get told to put a hot bottle on it and to take tons of Motrin. And I'm like, oh, but you don't have to suffer. You can change.
There's a root to the pain and probably what's going on and how it manifests.
I feel like educating people on foods you should eat, foods you shouldn't eat, things that you should do, how to even know what your body's telling you, because your period is a report card from the previous month. Right. So
you've taught me this.
Yes. So I feel like it's telling you so much information. And it's like I go to my gynecologist and I'm like, oh, my period is every 28 days. I have 5 days of fresh red blood. And I tell her, she's like, so it's normal? And she checks. And I'm like, but I just gave you this beautiful amount of information, but she doesn't even know how to process it. Right. So it's crazy to me that, people come in, they're like, I don't know. I mean, I have one every month. And I'm
right.
But like, they don't know.
Like, I know I get a little puffy and kind of crave some chocolate the week before. And then
my husband says
then
it's
there.
Yeah.
And then I feel like I get more emotional than mean. Like, emotional with this, like all the tears, all the flooding. But I feel like it's that cycle. And just like, we have seasons in our life, it's like your season in the month to shed. It's like the shedding season. So if you think of it from a holistic approach, like you're getting ready to shed the lining of your uterus. So why not shed all the emotions that have happened that month? It's like, it's almost like a time to release. And that's why women do feel the tension. That's why we do feel that, like, a little extra tension in car line, little extra, my fuse is a little short that week, because it's like your body's building up to release. And it's just really interesting. And you've taught me all of this just from our, a little over a year now together. And you're essentially my doctor for everything. Other than going under.
Yeah.
But, It's just fascinating to me because I had no
Mhm.
idea. Like you said, like we're not taught this. And my daughter even told me the other day that she has a girlfriend that's taking birth control for acne. And I'm
Which
like, she's
is
13.
which is so
And
bad.
why?
Yeah.
And I go back to like, what's the root? Like, well, what foods is she eating that could be causing the acne? What kind of stress is she under that could be
Mhm.
causing the acne? Like, why are we, with all of the knowledge we have at this day and
Mhm.
age, still doing this to everyone, like women and girls, and yeah, there's all kinds of other stuff out there right now that's,
Yes.
as far as hormone control goes, which just terrifies me. We're not going to get into it. Um, but I love that you're doing this work because it's super educating. And, I know that you've personally helped me in my journey. And I know you've helped several friends of mine get pregnant and, regulate themselves. And some of them even a couple times unexpectedly, which is always fun stories.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit more like the science behind it? So, you say we're not given the science and we don't really know. So can you kind of maybe break it down a little bit to educate us a little bit on the monthly cycle and kind of how it works? And
Sure. So, like you said, it's an amazing dance that your body does. So, from the science part of it, your body, like you were saying, like it gets ready for the bleeding cycle, and then you have these cells that come in and they get this signal, and they actually like spiral, and they stop feeding the cells. So your cells die off and they like fall down. And I always say your body, your endometrial lining is like wallpaper. So if you've ever had to go in and get crappy wallpaper off, you're like scraping and
Mhm.
scraping, and it comes in gloopy parts and it's just chunky and nasty. So I said every month we want to put up the nicest high-end wallpaper so that when your shedding time comes, it comes in these big sheets, goes right down, and it's beautiful. There's no pain. Everything is flawless, and it just happens. Your period should just start, no trickling, and it should end in like 4 to 5 days, and it should be fresh red blood, no clots, no cramps. So your cells do this beautiful thing where they like turn off, if you will, and then they come back because they immediately start building again because it's a cyclical
Right.
thing. So you shed your blood, and then your hormones are low during that time. Your estrogen and your progesterone are low because they're taking a little bit of break, which women should take a break because
Right.
your body's doing this huge thing, and we've been taught as women to keep up with men. We're supposed to just push through all the time, but that's not the case because we're fatiguing ourselves. Our body's supposed to rest and relax during this time, not like take the week off, but
Right.
do less, not maybe
Right.
do the strenuous exercise, and eat nourishing foods, not heavy things. And then our estrogen starts to climb back up. We have all these hormones that start to shift, and we're starting to recruit follicles now. Even if you're not trying to have a baby, it happens anyways. So your body needs to be well nourished because it's going to pick a couple and it's like, oh, I found this one that I like. So your body sends all this beautiful energy to this one follicle to develop. It is chosen, and then it is the levels go up, your estrogen peaks, which your temperature actually goes down, and then it's released. And so I always think it's like this beautiful like firework. It's like it goes out, goes and ready to get fertilized, but what's left behind starts to trigger the next process, which is
Okay.
so we've sent the follicle to be fertilized. Now we have the corpus luteum, which is the leftover part, and it triggers your progesterone levels. So now you've just released your egg and it's out there getting nourished and it's happy and it's hopefully going to meet some sperm and find its one and get together. And then the corpus luteum does your progesterone, and now your lining starts to build. So now we're rebuilding our womb to carry a baby. So your endometrial lining is getting thicker, and you want beautiful, soft, luscious lining because you want the
Best atmosphere.
you want the baby to burrow in and be all snuggly and warm. So you want it to go in and burrow. So now this is when your temperatures, you might be like, oh, I'm a little warmer today because your temperatures are rising because progesterone's a warm hormone. So you get this warm, and so you're creating this beautiful atmosphere because babies don't like cold. So your temperature actually climbs. And then during this time, you're probably when you're ovulating, you have a little more sensualness around you.
Mhm.
So I feel like throughout the cycle, your body changes as well. And then you have the progesterone, and that should keep climbing. And if you get pregnant, it'll climb even more. And then your body gets ready. And if it's pregnant, then you will stay at the same level. But if not, then your body, the progesterone starts to come down. So that's when you have a little more anxiety and a little more of the emotions and stuff, because things are tapering down and you're getting the dip in the hormone.
Mhm.
And then it's going to go back down, and then it triggers the release of all of your lining again.
And that's when the menstruation happens
correct.
afterwards. That our bodies do that every month.
It's so crazy.
We are freaking awesome. Like,
Yes.
I love men, but they are not superhumans like we are.
I know.
Like, that is, I mean, the way you describe it, I feel like we need to, when I think of all of this, I always think of the movie, Look Who's Talking. Do you remember in the beginning of
yeah.
Look Who's Talking, when
Yeah.
it's like the little thing swimming to the egg, and it's like, get me out of here. It's Bruce Willis's voice, I think. I just find that so fascinating because we're not taught that in school.
No.
We're not taught during, reproductive cycles and like to understand our bodies. And I feel like this is something, and I think that you're absolutely onto something with this, going and teaching young women, and maybe it's not in schools, maybe it's just something that you do on your own, or I don't know. I just think it's a beautiful practice for women to feel like they have ownership of their bodies. I am one of those women who, okay, I'm feeling fluffy from this week, so I'm going to go as hardcore. I'm going to cycle this day. I'm going to this day. I'm going to, I'm shedding all the water in my body. And that's the exact opposite of what I should have been doing all along. And that's crazy to me because no one ever tells you that. Like, no one ever says, hey, you're really going to burn out those adrenals, Crystal, if you try to shed this water that you're retaining, because it's just a natural part of the cycle and foods to eat. So give us a little clue on what are the best foods to eat? Because I know myself, sometimes I'll crave a little bit more sugar than normal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a super sweets person, but that's the time that I'll crave some dark chocolate or one, that's like, I think also like a social stigma, but it's true.
Yeah.
So what are the best foods to eat at like what time of the month to help you? Because I know no one wants to feel heavy and bloated, and you're going to feel that way anyway. So what are some things that we can eat, or maybe some tricks and tips to keeping us feeling our optimal self during those times?
In the beginning part of your cycle, remember the temperature is lower. Estrogen is a cool hormone. So you're not trying to, we tend to do things that are not right. So you don't want to do things that are going to change it, because you need that environment, because you don't want to cook your eggs.
Right.
So cooler things would be like more fruits would be better. I know some people can't have eggs, but
like myself, I just found I was allergic to eggs, and it's pretty devastating.
Yes. So eggs are good for eggs. Okay. So if you're trying to conceive, things like get more sushi with the roe on it. Those are really, really good for that. Then in the second part, more warming things like ginger and turmeric and a little bit of spicy, not too spicy.
Like comfort foods almost.
Yeah,
but not
things
like
that
mac
are
and cheese.
Warming.
But warming for your insides, not necessarily.
Because progesterone's warmer, so you want to help it a little bit. And just the chocolate thing could be just like a mineral deficiency. Like maybe your body is, really storing that blood, so it's needing some more chromium or something to really.
And for me, like I said, I know I have a tendency to go a little harder that time of the month because I like to shed the water, but I'm really probably depleting myself, as we have seen on my hormone testing results, which we'll get into here in a little bit. I'll expose all my stuff so I can help other people, because that's just what I like to do. I just find this very fascinating. So women can come see you.
Yes.
You just changed the name of your practice. You're now Restore
Fertility and Wellness.
Love that. And, so I used to say you're my acupuncturist, but you've become so much more than that. You've given me and my husband both, my husband goes to see you. You're not just a female doctor. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I definitely want to put out there. You've given us results that, like I said, really prestigious facilities have not. So when I went for the thyroid, and you're like, okay, well, let's look at your levels. You broke it down to me A, in a way I could understand it. B, in a way that I could tell you were super passionate and you were talking to me like I was a human and you were super nerding out on me. And I'm like, okay, you're nerding out. And I'm nerding out. We had this whole nerd fest and it was so fun. And I feel like we do that every time we're together. But, things like the adrenal fatigue and understanding, I had an IUD at the time and understanding what that was doing to my body. And now that I've taken it out, I complain about my 10 pounds of fluff, but you're helping me regulate all of that and understand it's like, okay, it's your body regulating. You're like, Crystal, you're not gaining fat. It's water, it's hormones. It's, and maybe I am a little softer than I used to be because my hormones are changing and I am taking it easy because I am listening to my body and I'm taking those rest periods that I used to not take.
Sure.
But it's like the best thing that I could do for my body. And I would not have known any of that. I would have kept going hard. I would have continued on my, drinking my cup of coffee at 3:00 in the afternoon rather than laying down and resting and knowing that my cortisol levels are shot at that time of the day. And,
sure.
When you showed me those pictures of my HPA axis, which I'll have you explain in a second, that was life-changing for me because it was like, seeing the dials of, okay, well, and I'm educated enough in the field to understand a lot of these, hormones and cortisol levels and serotonin levels and estrogen, testosterone, but a lot of people may not be. But I feel like you really explained that perfectly if I would have come in completely blind and not been able to, articulate any of it. It's just the way that the way that you present the information, I have felt like has been really beneficial for me for understanding. I don't always like to hear what my results are, like being allergic to eggs that I was eating like 3 times a day. But that explains why I was bloated all those days.
Right.
Which is interesting because now every time I do eat eggs, because, I'm still that
up.
person.
Yeah.
I just love them. But it's like immediate bloat. And it's like, okay, well, that makes sense. Like, it's not something crazy. You don't have anything, going on. But so it's been super beneficial for me and I'm excited. And what for you has been the most kind of pivotal, like, started in acupuncture, but I want to take this much further. Like, I know that you're getting more into, just being an overall integrative practitioner. And I love the Eastern medicine approach. I mean, since I was in neuromuscular massage school and studied the Chinese meridians, and I was intrigued by Chinese medicine because I'm like, they've had this figured out for a long time. And like reflexology in the feet and just, how everything is connected. And even just from going and seeing you once to twice a week for over a year now, seeing the results for myself, what has led you into that? Was it personal journey? Was it just seeing results in your patients? What kind of led you into the whole encompassing rather than just the acupuncture and fertility?
Oh, I think from my journey as well, just, I was not dealt the easiest hand. I was, cesarean section, essentially fed through a bottle, tons of antibiotics as a kid. So I feel like my whole life I've been trying to get myself to a healthy part. So everyone has their things that they have to deal with. So I'm constantly like working on my gut, constantly making sure I'm eating the right things that make the processes better. So for a long time I was, I went to the bathroom like literally once a week, like have a bowel movement. And I thought that was normal. And I just made these shifts, like mental and like through eating. And I have like, I'm very proud of my bowel. I have like the most beautiful bowel movements now. And I know it sounds so silly, but I feel so good because it's not in me. It's like processed efficiently and quickly and effectively. And I feel like, that's what I love about functional medicine and incorporating the two, because some people can have estrogen dominance and they've been told, oh, you have estrogen dominance. So there's many factors. And I feel like a lot of doctors are they're leading the patients the wrong direction. They're like, we're going to give you this medicine to pull it out. But what if their estrogen isn't dominant? What if they can't go to the bathroom and they're holding it in their body?
They're just full of shit.
Literally. And so they can't excrete what they need to excrete. So not only are they pulling toxins back in their body, but their estrogen keeps circulating
in the toxins
within when it's not supposed to. You're supposed to, pull it out, go to the next process, but it's not able. So uncovering for people, it's like I'm a detective. And so I go in there and, I ask a ton of questions, probably very uncomfortable questions. They don't bother me a bit, but
me either, but I could see
I can talk about poop all the time.
Right.
And so I uncover things, and it's so beautiful when we make the smallest change and people are like, oh my gosh, I feel like myself again. And that's when I hear that, I'm like, check. Yeah. And I love it because it's not always, okay, here's your $1,200 worth of supplements and here's your eating plan and you have to stop doing everything. I'm like, hey, what if you stop drinking ice in your drink?
Right.
And they're like, what? I'm like, are you bloated every time you eat? Yes, because your stomach is internal organ and likes to be warm and you're freezing it every time. Right. And so you're making sludge instead of like a nice thin liquid. So now your body's working extra hard and not utilizing everything that you eat. And they're like, oh my God.
It's interesting you say that. I've never really liked cold water.
Oh, but we're the only country that puts ice in our water.
Right.
As I have mine.
I think it's more of a Southern thing too.
Because so hot.
Sweet tea. Yeah. It's hot. Yes. Makes it last longer.
Right. So I love how they all like just uncovering. I think I like challenge. And so I couldn't work at a place where I did the same thing every day. I would go insane. Same. And so I love that I never know what I'm going to see. And I come in and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And people are like, I'm really hurt here. And I'm like, oh no, but this is good. We got so much information. We have, you do this and do this, but you don't do this and don't do that. I'm like, oh, this is going to be so fun. And I have to like dial it back a little bit because people are like,
not everyone's like me and come in and like, okay, let's dive in deep. Yeah. Like, I can understand how that could be terrifying.
So it's exciting because I get to see the changes unfold, and it's not fast because it took you years to get to this stage. So it's going to take you some time to undo it.
Right.
And you've learned a certain way of doing things. So to undo some things and change a little bit here, change a little there, it's uncomfortable. But I think the payoff is so huge that people stay with it.
Right. And I love that. And I think that's a good segue into kind of what you've helped me with, which I feel like is something that is probably running rampant in our society that we don't even test for or talk about. Mm-hmm. It's really not recognized in a lot of places. But, as I mentioned in my first podcast, that I was diagnosed with complex PTSD. And with that, chronic stress comes a lot of different hormones. You're on fight or flight mode forever. I feel like, a lot, I feel like mine's come in gaps. I can definitely, and just because of the work I've done, I'm more self-aware and I know when I get in survival mode. Like I can tell. It's that for me, it's flight mode. It's like, okay, this isn't working. I need to leave. This isn't working. I need to leave. Past the fight, I'm either people pleasing because I want to keep the peace because I don't want to go into flight mode. So I had a interesting conversation with my life coach this morning. And she's like, okay, I want you to take yourself out of the flight file, like literally take yourself out of flight file and think long-term, big picture. Mm-hmm. And I think because for a lot of us, we are like, okay, I need to change this now. It's like we live in a world of instant gratification, instant fixes, let's fix this. And like I said, I started seeing you a year ago, went to you with some pre-existing information, the diagnosis for PTSD, the therapies and stuff I was doing, on the mental health aspect of it. But then you're like, okay, we can definitely get you on track with your hormones. So let's figure out what's going on. Mm-hmm. We did the Dutch test you sent me home with, which was super easy. It was the saliva and urine test I had to do. And, it was easy. You gave me the schedule, which was great. I sent it in. What was it, like 10, 12 days later or something? Mm-hmm. We got the results. And that gave me so many answers. And at the time, the first time, I'd still had the IUD, so it was a little different. But the big thing for me was seeing that HPA axis. So can you explain to us a little bit what that is and kind of what the findings were? And I'm happy to use myself as an example and put it out there because I feel like this could really help a lot of people. in a lot of ways if they were to do this for themselves, just to understand kind of the background of where their fatigue may be coming from, or stubborn water weight holding, all these things that kind of I was experiencing that just didn't feel right. And I knew I wasn't feeling right, but it made so much sense after I figured it out.
Sure. So I feel like our bodies are prehistoric to a fault. Like it's good and bad. And there's multiple layers. So I feel like with the PTSD, you at a certain age or a certain period, you had this reaction. And so now whenever this particular thing happens to you, you have this old record playing. And so it's just easy because your body's like, oh, we know that. And so you have to reprogram it so that you play a different story, a different loop in your body. So your body just immediately goes to this old way of doing it. And so that's usually the protection one. That's usually like, okay, I'm getting ready to go. But I mean, I know a lot of people use the whole tiger thing, and it's so true. We could have, oh my gosh, okay, I have this project due at work, and it's in 2 weeks, and I have to do it. And you have all this adrenaline pumping through your body, and you're like, okay, I have to do it. Well, I know she's not going to help out, and like and you're feeding this monster. And so when your body is pumping cortisol into your body, and it's even though there's not a tiger chasing you, your body doesn't see it that way. So if I have this huge project at work and I'm seeing how, I'm not going to get any help, I'm going to be up late, I have all these things, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. And I'm starting to spiral, but your body is dumping the cortisol. And so you're not metabolizing your food because your body's like, we got to run. This tiger is getting ready to chase us. So even if we eat, it's like, not enough flows to our gut to be able to use things. So then secondly, like getting pregnant, that's like, your body's hormones are like, listen, we're not trying to have a baby. We've got a tiger chasing us. Right. So I feel like there's multiple things that we need to do. We need to set expectations. So like if you have this, instead of going into like the spiraling thing, you're like, okay, I have 2 weeks to do this. I know she's not going to help me. So what can I do? And you set up a plan of action, and then you just make it chunks of time. And then you feel that you never went into the spiral. So now your body is able to get all of the processes going. So now you say, oh, okay, here's my timeline of things I need to do. I have everything that I need to do. It's still the same amount of work, but you've made it so it's not stressful.
Prioritize it so it's not overwhelming. And I feel like for me, that's something that I've really dove deep in for the past couple of years after, understanding this diagnosis, because I was told my entire life I had ADD or ADHD because I would get in school, I would feel overwhelmed, and I would feel the need to tap my foot or go work out, or like I should be running. Yeah. I could be running. I need to be running right now. This is boring. This is stupid. This, so and I would have trouble focusing. And but when I found out about the PTSD, I'm like, well, that makes so much sense, which is interesting because I've always kind of, utilized exercise as a tool for myself, like body movement, to a fault sometimes.
Right.
But body movement and, counting, like I taught group exercise for years and still do, but the 8 counts. And that, from what I know from, the trauma recovery and stuff that I've gone through is, your body can't be in flight mode and feel your senses at the same time. So we actually had this lunch and learn on Monday, and what she taught us, which I thought was really great, is, when you feel like you're having those tiger moments or you feel like you're getting overwhelmed, having those moments in there of, okay, so what can I count right now? Maybe start multiplying things in your head, or count on your fingers, or even sensory, like rub your fingers and stroke your fingers at each time. And because that will kind of calm that amygdala down, which in turn will calm those hormones down.
Sure.
But, over time, mine has been my entire life from childhood experiences and, going through school and getting overwhelmed and, really fatiguing my body with over-exercising, and also, dabbled with eating disorders, which causes a whole other disruption with hormones in your body. interesting. I've always considered myself a health practitioner, like a healthy person, but I was honestly self-sabotaging without even knowing it. But we all are in some way, shape, or form, drinking alcohol, and thinking that it was okay to wake up the next day and feel like crap. And that was just part of it. And, realizing what that was actually damaging. So when we get down to like the hypothalamus, those things, how do you get to the point where you get to adrenal fatigue?
So it's just the loop doesn't go. So your hypothalamus talks to your pituitary and your thyroid. There's like the communication. So they go, right. But there's this lack of communication because there are blocks. Mm-hmm. And then they talk to your ovaries, they talk to your adrenals. There's different loops. And when we do things that are stressful or do things that fatigue our body, we cut off certain things. So again, back to like the adrenals, they make the insulin. So when you have tons of insulin dumping in, that your body has to recover that. So now you have to, make extra this to change into that, or you store body fat, which has no, visceral fat in your abdomen has no, I want to say like electricity. There's no mm-hmm. flow, no energy in it. So it makes things like there's a barrier. So now things can't flow easily. So mm-hmm. that's why it's so hard to lose the belly fat, because there's like you've just dumped so much cortisol and now it's this big goo of stuff, but there's no energy transferring in there. Right. Where like in your muscles, it's like fibrous and it's like beautiful, like this intricate, tons of energy in there. So there's no energy in there. So it causes these blockages. And fat also stores hormones. It stores different things that, and when you have so much of it in your body, now you have an excess, which is causing things done like we're talking about the estrogen dominance. Mm-hmm. So when you store so much stuff, you're creating extra things for your body to work on. So it's so busy fixing, putting out fires, doing all these inflammation too. Right. It creates so much stuff. Your body is constantly just yelling at you.
Right.
So many things can't happen in your body when you have inflammation, because you know, all of your workers are out there trying to put these fires out. And so like, there's not enough workers to take this hormone to this hormone to this hormone, ta-da. So there's it's just causing all these disruptions unnecessary in the system.
It's literally having like a wildfire, having mm-hmm. all the firemen out there putting out the fire. But then what if the damn fire station catches on fire? Correct. Like, who's going to help that? Yeah. It's kind of like that's 100%. Almost like what I'm picturing when you're saying this.
Right. So there's the communication loop isn't created. So then it doesn't go to your adrenals to go back up to the top. So there's, it could be just stop and, like or it's slow. So if there's all this stuff in the way, it should be like, like it should be timed. But if there's, things that are in the way, it might be, have to go on a detour, go down this street, hook a right. And, mm-hmm. And so to get there, it's not as fast. And so, that's when thyroid issues happen. Right. How come I have hypothyroid? Well, because your thyroid is yelling for like, I need more thyroid and I need more thyroid hormone. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, we'll get you there some. Right. We'll get some there soon to you. Right. And it's sluggish because there's something impeding it. And like you were talking before about the autoimmune issue.
Right.
So I wanted to say something about that is if you have one autoimmune issue, you probably have multiple autoimmune issues. So, and the thing that you need to do is, like you said, so the thyroid is actually like if you have antibodies for your thyroid, it's going to destroy your thyroid over time, but maybe not at the beginning. So you might have your TSH might look beautiful.
Right.
But it's destroying your body. So we have to, again, put that fire out, but we have to not only put it out, but now we have to like build the soil and nourish it and make sure that we have give it the good food. So now we can grow this new thing because you want your environment to be really good. So, I feel like going on thyroid medication for
It just masks it. It doesn't kill the problem.
It doesn't treat
this is just how I feel about medicine in general. I've always been that way since I was little. Like, they would try to give me Tylenol to break my fever, and I'm like, I'm supposed to have the fever. It's doing its job.
100%.
Like, leave me alone. Like, I'm not mom. Like, I don't really give my kids medicine unless I'm, if there's a time and a place. And I do feel like Western medicine has its place. If I break my arm, I'm not going to come see you for, I'm not going to come in your office with my arm dangling. And, I just feel like I've acquired so much more knowledge because this is kind of the process we're going through now. I discovered the adrenal fatigue a year ago. And we've recently sent off for a new thyroid panel. So we'll see how that's been after the year that we've been treating. I mean, this is like 38 years of running from tigers I've been doing because of my life circumstances and just old conditioning. And, obviously I'm doing my part working on that through like Resilient Retreat and doing neurofeedback and really literally getting down to the science of changing my brain waves to come out of that. However, there's still factors in my life that I just can't run away from. Sure. So, I have a big life. I have 4 kids. There's just life things that we're all going to have. So this next process, and it's kind of, I will say, I remember coming back to see you after my year results from the hormones and being like, I feel like a failure. Nothing's changing. And you're like, but it is. Like, look at these numbers. And it really helped me because, like you said, it's a process.
It is.
But it has to be a very intentional process for the person. And it takes a lot of work.
It takes a lot of work, but it takes time.
Right.
But back to like the adrenal thing, there are things that you can do. So adaptogens are really, really good.
And that's what you just put me on, correct?
Correct. So they're good because stress is inevitable. It's how you deal with it.
Right.
So again, if you have that project at work, it's going to help you because that person's still not going to help you. All the things, you still have the deadline, but you can be like, oh, cool, I got this. Oh, that person pulled out in front of me. Hey, you're probably running late. Come on in. So it helps you to deal with it. So things like ashwagandha, rhodiola, eleuthero root, ginseng, those are all good. And so what an adaptogen does is exactly what it says. So it adapts. So if you have high stress or if there's positive and negative stress, it just helps you to deal with it. It's not an upper, it's not a downer.
Right.
It's kind of like, it's like a little gentle mama hug that kind of like helps you, but it's not going to, make you like, oh, that's great. I got all the energy in the world.
It's not like a Bang energy drink that you drink before you go sit down.
Which actually drains your adrenals. And, but it's not like, smoking weed and being like, hey, nothing bothers me.
Right.
So it's not either of those. It's actually really good because it supports you.
Right. Well, I guess that explains a lot about my college history, taking Adderall and smoking weed. One extreme to the other.
It's great. I'm balanced.
It's great. I was totally balanced. Sorry, I had to laugh about that one because it's true.
Yes.
It's the things that we do. And even, I had doctors, it's your anxiety. And it's like, but it wasn't anxiety. It was PTSD.
Right.
But when you go, and this is one thing that, and I mentioned on my first podcast, understanding that about myself, it made so much sense because of, some childhood stuff I went through and even adult life stuff that I still go through. That constant survival mode, fight or flight. But what tools can I utilize? So I am just so thankful and grateful to have you in my circle. You've given me so much knowledge and information to carry with me. And I think about that. I think about these things during my day. The supplements I take from you and I know I can't miss that in the morning and I should make sure to take it in the middle of the day. Or if I know I have something coming up, the adaptogens and that, what else was it? The thyroid, what other things did you put me on for the thyroid and the,
some autoimmune boosting things.
Okay.
So we're trying to boost your immune system because we want your workers to be out there working for you and not, again, putting out the fire while there's a little fire here. So we just want to boost everything so that your body is able, because you can turn things on and off.
Right.
But if we're so depleted, it's so easy to break into somebody's house. If you're not there and you posted on Facebook, you're not there.
Right.
That's how you are with your body. You're literally not home.
Right.
And so they're like, hey, Crystal's not home. Let's go break in her house. So that's what your body does.
Please don't.
Yeah. So but you have all of your, you have all of your guards up. You have your
Right.
workers there, you have your protection, and they're like, nope, sorry, not having that today. So when your immune system is working for you, you have everything up. Everybody's working for you, keeping the bad stuff out, being like, all right, yep, you're on the list, you can come in. And so like, that's how your body should work. But it's crazy town when your body's not working the way that it's supposed to. And,
and one of the things that I've taken on is I feel like it's just my personal responsibility. And, I have people like, oh my God, you don't drink anymore? Because, I was happy hour queen at one point in my life. And happy hour is really not happy. That's a whole other episode.
Right.
But
it's drama hour.
It's like drama hour. But understanding, like, all of this knowledge I've accumulated about myself and what's going on in my brain and my hormones and my thyroid. And it's like, well, that's why, and I've said this before and I'll say it again every day. Like, I never woke up one day and was like, I'm never going to drink again. And I would still never say that. I just wake up every day and make whatever decisions I need to make in my life to carry me through that day. And it just so happens to not be alcohol today. You know what I mean? And just making those decisions, because I feel like, and actually, Troy Turner at Resilient Retreat who's doing my neurofeedback, said this to me one time, and I think it's beautiful, and I've used it. He's like, when you're doing all this work, all the work that you're doing, Crystal, it's like you're building this beautiful sandcastle, right? So knowing what you know about your limbic system and your PTSD patterns and your adrenals and all of these things, if you were to go out and have a crazy wild night, we're not talking maybe one glass of wine, but, a few or whatever, it's like a tidal wave coming and just crashing your sandcastle away. And then you just kind of have to start all over again.
Yeah.
And that's the way I think of it. And it's just not worth it. I went on this, girls weekend and went to Savannah and had a great time. And I mean, I drank so much water because some of the other ladies were having beverages here and there, but I had so much fun. And I think it's just a mindset. And I think that now that I do have the knowledge and it's a personal choice, it's not because I'm that person. You can't tell me not to do something because so what? Screw what you say, I'm going to do it anyway. But now that it's a personal choice and it's like, I'm building this beautiful masterpiece and I just want to keep that flow going, and I feel like the whole point of this podcast is really enlighten people on ways that they can do that for themselves. Now, it doesn't mean they have to completely stop drinking alcohol or they have to go completely functional medicine or, learn about poop in their periods and all the things that I love to learn about. But it's just so intriguing to me to get to really the root cause of everything. And I think that is just kind of my life motto. I want to know the root. Like, I can tell you the symptoms all day long. And I feel like I'm almost at that point in my life where when people are just talking about their symptoms, I'm like, okay, so why? Like, what have you done to get to the root? And I've heard you talk about your symptoms for a long, long time. And what have you done to change the root? And so I think that just providing this knowledge and different resources and, it's going to hit the people that it needs to hit. It's going to resonate with some people. It's not going to resonate with other people. And that's okay. Every level of medicine, and this is not to tell people what they should be doing with their bodies or shouldn't be doing, just to incorporate a different level of knowledge that helped me so much in my journey that I feel like could help others. And, and the availability of testing that you have, the ability to do little things, my husband was, concerned about some stuff he had. You send it off and whoop, got some answers right away. And it's like, wow, why aren't we being offered these tests? Why, it's hard to answer that question. I'm just thankful to have found you to have the answers to these questions and to have all of this more, in-depth knowledge. And I will absolutely put a girl gang together and have you come over and teach my daughter and her friends about their periods.
I would love it.
I mean, seriously, because I feel like this is such it's such our kids actually go to school together. So they're all around the same age, middle school age. I mean, middle school was terrible. It's terrible for so many reasons. Everyone's trying to find themselves. They're coming into their bodies. Their bodies are coming into
hormones
them.
Are raging.
Their hormones are raging. But even for boys, I mean, you have two sons. What advice do you give them? Because I feel like men have monthly cycles just as women do. I don't care what they say. I don't care what they say. They have a cycle.
Sure.
So, what is it? How do you coach your kids and your family.
Oh,
like, I know
gosh.
that's one thing for me that's really hard. It's like, I want to bring all of my information home and tell
Right.
my whole, I want my husband to try this and my kids to try this.
Sure.
And, and I feel like that's where I really have to like pump my brakes and realize everyone's journey is their own.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you find balance in that for yourself as a practitioner, being as knowledgeable as you are, being as passionate as you are about everything? Like, how do you create a work-life balance for yourself and creating, implementing those healthy habits around the house for yourself, your kids, traveling? I know you guys are really into baseball, like all the things. Like, how do you balance it all? Because that's a huge part of life too. I mean, you're a working mom. You have a really successful business. How do you balance it?
Oh, gosh. Well, I don't
and
always.
It's okay to say you don't.
So I feel like I'm a lot. So my kids they listen and they take some. Because, they're like, oh, Mom, sugar's inflammatory. And I get the eye roll as they eat like Reese's peanut butter cups. And I'm like, buddy, no.
Right.
And so it's tricky because they hear it and they apply some of it. But what I do love is when they talk to their friends, they're like, don't you know? And they say something and I'm like, oh my gosh, they were listening to me.
Right.
So it's really cool. And we're very open about truth, and we're very open about situations. And I don't know, I feel like, I think from an early age, my kids know how the body works. And I'm very like, here's what it is. This is what it is. And so, like my son was in preschool or kindergarten, and he was like, you do know the baby comes out the vagina, right? And this teacher's like, oh my gosh. And
where did they think it came from? Santa Claus?
Right, their belly button.
Oh, the belly button. Okay.
So he's like, it's really cool though. Did you know the baby's head, the reason why you can't touch their head is because their heads go over and it goes in the mouth of mom's vagina. It's so cool. Can you believe that we fit out? And I'm like, oh, that's true, but maybe not for kindergarten. And
see, I'm that mom too, though. I'm the oversharer.
But it's just
I talk
information.
about all the things, but it makes me feel good because my daughter understood what was going on. Like,
right.
The kids
we call
understand
every piece the piece. Like,
right.
You have a penis, you have a vagina. If you, I have women that are grown and they're like, my vagina. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what did you say? And like, they can't even say the word. And I'm like, but it's just the two of us in the room.
Right.
Like, why are you whispering my period? And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And so it's crazy. So I just want my kids to own stuff, and I want my kids to be good humans, but I also teach them about proper rest and hydration,
right.
And how, why do you need a Gatorade if you're just sitting watching a show? Like, you're not exerting tons of, so I'm like, yeah, there's times when you do need to add electrolytes to your body, but I don't think that you need, these parents who bring like first of all, I don't like my kids have Gatorade, but
same.
Like they bring this stuff and I'm like, I feel like you're been programmed to think that's what you need. Your kid needs water.
Right. In baseball, let's face it, they're not running the bases the entire time. The majority of their day is standing in the heat.
100%. So you do need to hydrate yourself.
Right.
But you don't need 12 Gatorades.
Right.
So, I'm very open about my children. I'm open about ingredients. And I'm like, I know your friend has that, but I don't like the ingredients in that. So I choose to not purchase that. Mom, come on. And I'm like, you're going to thank me later. They carry their electronics. And I'm always like, how about let's not keep it close to our private areas. I won't let them have the earbuds because I don't want them to have
brain tumors.
Yeah. to have brain stuff. And they're like, Mom, you're so overprotective. And I'm like, you're welcome. And so.
Right. Well, they're not understanding the EMFs and,
they don't,
all of the.
Or reproduction. And,
and we don't really know. That's just it. We don't know what's going to happen by having 5G stuff in our pockets and at our ear. We really don't know yet.
The bees don't like it. I feel like probably not good for us.
Right. And it's interesting. And this is we're turning into a whole new episode,
right?
Which is fine. And that's just it. It's as a parent, you can only do so much, right?
Right.
But it's really hard, and this goes back to even the medical stuff we were talking about. It's really hard when it's almost like a faux pas to not go along with the norms. Same thing for my daughter. Like, I don't really like her to have the ear pods in her ears all the time. And she has the AirPod Max. And I'm like, well, are those even any better? Because it's covering it's like way more of your head. And I don't know. I guess I'm just old school like that. I feel like I'm just run in the grass and play in the dirt
but that's so good
get some
for you.
Sunshine and
Sunshine
I think that was
bacteria.
The biggest part of me through the whole pandemic stuff. Is like, why are we forcing people to stay inside? Forcing people to put stuff in their bodies, that we don't really know, it's just very new stuff. And I don't want to get onto a whole thing. And why is it a political issue? What people are making choices for their bodies? I just feel like it's all of like the whole, again, point of this podcast is just like to encourage people to have a voice for themselves.
Exactly.
Like, my approach to that was, guess what? I respect and appreciate what everyone wants to do for themselves. I don't want to feel pressured to go one way or another.
Sure.
I'm going to spend time in the sunlight. I'm going to spend time outside. I had a new baby at the time. It allowed me to sit in some stillness and understand some patterns I had going on psychologically. And through part of that was really like not watching the news and not having like media in my ear all the time telling me what I should do. And it's scary, again, having these middle school children, such an impressionable age. How do we, help them transition into the real world, but still try to implement those values and all of that stuff? And I don't know. I feel like that's a whole other episode. We'll have to be continued on that one. But
especially navigating because you have a girl that's in middle school and I have boys who, how was your day? Good. Awesome. I'm glad that I can feel good about the whole day now.
I have 2 older bonus sons, and it's, they're high and by on their things.
Awesome.
And she'll sit down and ask her how everything was, which I love because she communicates. She's a connector like I am.
Yes.
But I think I'll do that maybe this summer, is have you come over and and talk to the girls. I think it's a brilliant, or maybe my girlfriends, like have a retreat. You and I have talked about this, 100%. Like doing some fun retreats, like gathering, our knowledge and our expertise and talking about these things. And
but for me, the reason why I wanted to do the high school kids is because one of my friends, she teaches at the school for the mothers who got pregnant.
Right.
And so I feel like if these young ladies would know when their fertile time of the month is, they could use protection during that time, or know, like if you know this, like maybe avoid it during that, so I just feel like these women have no idea. And they're like, oh, yeah, well, I'll just,
Yeah.
And so
we're doing hand gestures.
I don't know if
the pull-out method doesn't work.
Thank you. Okay.
Like, you could say it. If we've talked about poop, we've talked about periods, you can say pull-out doesn't work.
Right. So, and then, but I just feel like these women aren't educated. And even women who are like well-educated women aren't educated about their period. They come in, they're like, I don't even know when I ovulate. I'm like, how do you not know? Because changes happen during that time. And I'm like, if you can identify those changes, then you'll actually know. So if you're trying to get pregnant, that's when you want to have sex. If you're not, that's when you don't have sex. So if like you and I didn't want to be on birth control pills, like we could navigate the situation a little more safely than these girls. Like I don't think that's the answer is birth control. No,
it's absolutely not, because it causes so many other adverse effects. And not to mention, and I don't know this for a fact, but I just feel like it definitely contributes to things later down the road, like
100%,
different cancers and, stuff that we're, environmental stuff. And it's really scary out there. And I'm just really grateful to have you in my corner as my practitioner, my integrative practitioner of Eastern and functional medicine. I had to write that down. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you.
And anything else you want to share about yourself, about your practice, about your journey, before we sign off today?
I don't think so. I really, truly, from my heart, it just brings me so much pleasure and happiness to help women to get the oh my gosh, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have a family. Or if it, I feel finally like myself again. Like those are the kind of things that feed my heart and make me happy. And But at the same time, my heart's crushed when women are like, I've been still trying and I can't. So my heart goes out to all the women, and I just want to help them sincerely and truly. And it just brings me great joy to see, because I do like the detective work. So to me, I'm always like, yes, case solved. And I just love being able to uncover things and help people to navigate and find a way.
Right. And unravel until they get to the root, and then kind of heal the root. And like my life coach says, once you heal the root, you have fresh fruit.
You're not done.
But if you don't heal the root, you're going to have rotten fruit.
Yeah.
And I think of that a lot, and it's so true.
It is.
So
foundation.
Yes. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome
for joining me today, Stephanie. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Okay.